Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Tania, thanks so much for switching seats today on the podcast, and time for me to ask you some questions. As many of you know, Tania is a senior consultant at Crampton Consulting Group and has over 20 years of experience in this industry. And she frequently runs training and consulting workshops for veterinary practices of all sizes across Australasia and is involved in wider industry events as well. So, Tanya, to kick off, we know that clinics are flat out with dealing with these industry challenges, across staffing challenges, cost of living, and less pets coming through the doors in the COVID era. An often overlooked part of the practice is efficient stock control and inventory management due to lack of the time that these teams have. So, from your experience in supporting clinics with inventory management, workshops, and training, what are some of those hidden costs to practices of poor inventory management?
I think you nailed it when you said hidden costs and efficiency. So when we talk about inventory, everyone assumes it's about the products on the shelf or the price that you pay with your wholesaler. But I think about time. None of us can buy time, and we waste so much time managing our inventory ineffectively, or else not actually tracking and looking where our opportunities is. So time is probably one of the biggest things. I see practices that order every day. I did a survey in 2025, the beginning of the year. We had over 150 practices that actually responded. And of those practices, greater than 50% order 4+ times per week. It's a lot of orders, and that's from their primary wholesaler. And every order means that that person can't do customer service. They can't help in surgery. They can't chase debtors. They can't do marketing. They can't provide a good client or patient experience. But it's also time when the order comes, times to receive the goods. So that's probably the first. The second I think about is our margin leakage. Practices aren't necessarily automating their systems or utilizing technology to update their prices automatically, or it's not done within a timely manner. Timely manner is 1 to 2 hours. So that means we maintain the margin integrity of our products. And I suppose the two other things I think about straight off the bat would be wastage. So whether we're managing our slow moving, obsolete, or backstock is a big one. And then our cash flow drag. So we often have a lot of backstock in our practices. That's not an area that's often looked at. We did have challenge over the last couple of years because we have had some supply issues, obviously coming out of COVID. We did get used to holding high levels of certain items because we were scared we'd run out. And that's an opportunity. It's backstock. It's your primary lines that you use or turn more than once a month, but you're actually holding more than your reorder period. And you could be holding $5,000 to $20,000 worth of backstock in your practice for, say, 2.5 to 3 full-time equivalent vet, which you could use that cash as an opportunity for something else.
And so, looking at that, thinking about the time factor, and then how much could you sort of see per vet per year, like forfeiting in terms of this lack of, efficient inventory management?
So the vet time as such?
Yeah, and then also, I guess, like the total cost estimated per vet outside of
It's really,
time.
yeah, so really interesting. When you look at total estimated costs, the data around it sits up to 84,000. And when we think of the 84,000, we think about it because the vet might not be able to do surgery. There might not be a nurse to assist to do the surgery. It might be that we haven't done our reminders and therefore the clients haven't come in. But we also have the opportunity cost when we don't have the product on the shelf and therefore they have to delay surgery, or they might have to change their recommendation or take longer to look up another product. All of those things are time costs, which at the end of the day costs our business.
Yeah, okay. So looking at, how a vet practice and their teams can start tracking some of the right metrics to understand, whether their stock control is efficient or slipping, what are some of those things that they should start doing and looking at?
So I think the first thing that we have an opportunity in our industry is to understand some of the inventory metrics better. I'm passionate about inventory, not because I'm a numbers nerd, which I actually am a huge numbers nerd, but when we manage our inventory well, the patients get the medication they need at the right time. We don't have to delay or compromise, and we reduce stress on the team. So understanding the fundamentals of inventory is the first step for our practices. So thinking about understanding what slob items are, for example. So often the term's thrown around, but it's slow moving, obsolete, and backstock. how do they identify that? So leveraging their PIM system to be able to do stock movement reports. What products haven't been sold in 90 days? What products sit on the shelf for greater than 30 days? So 30 days brings it to a risk of slow moving, haven't turned it within the statement period. 90 days is often, do we need to keep that product or is it obsolete? And then backstock, obviously, I explained, is the product that we use within that 30 days, but we're holding too much. So I think doing those, understanding slog, understanding stock turns. So if you think about inventory, we often really focus on the price of a product. That's all the primary focus is. And I think something Sue Crampton said to me, oh, it would have been, this is how old we are, 25, maybe even 30 years ago, was people do the best they can with the information they have in the environment they're in. And what I know about our inventory controllers is they're all really hardworking. And what they try and do is pick the cheapest product. But the cheapest product might not be the best product for that practice. So if we think about how can they help in that area, a clear procurement guideline that's actually identifies who their primary suppliers are, who their aligned manufacturers are, because our people doing the ordering don't often see net price, which is including your rebates and your discounts or your value products or your training, etc. So they do what best they can as they compare price and price. And it could be a really strong differential. I might pay $10 for this product, but I might pay $8 for this product. So they'll pick $8. But the $10 product comes with this, and the net price might only be $7.50. So when we think about things to track, having a clear procurement guideline so they can track their top 100 items to their strategic alignment. It's generally about 70% of their spend in a small animal GP practice. And in equine practice, it's about 40%. Mixed practice, it sits between that sort of 100 to 120. It's about 70% of spend. So those are probably a couple of metrics there. Cost of goods and what's actually included in cost of goods. Because if we think about exactly as I mentioned there, understanding those rebates, etc., whether that comes in against the cost of goods line or is it included in revenue on your P&L? Because if it's included in revenue in the P&L, it's not wrong, but we might not necessarily be seeing that true cost of goods, because if you allocate it off, then you're actually able to see that buying power, etc. So there's a few things in there, but it comes back to the fundamentals of understanding inventory, understanding stock turns, statement periods, and increasing that knowledge.
And that funnels nicely into the next question I had around hot topic. A lot of practices might only look at their stock once or twice a year, right? Coming into end of financial year, etc. What's your advice on stock ordering and sort of cyclical stock takes? Like how frequently should practices be looking at this stuff?
I bloody love a cyclical stock take, Josh. So I would be stock taking every day. But if I said to you, hey, Josh, while you're on your shift today, could you just pop out to the pharmacy and count those 80 items? How would you respond to me? Whilst you're looking after customer service, perhaps monitoring an anaesthetic, is it achievable? It's not achievable. But if I said, while you're on your shift today, could you count these 5 products? It's achievable. And we think about cyclic stock takes. It is counting batch or small items, 5, 10 at a push, so that you can also investigate why they're wrong. What we do as an industry is we do these bulk stock takes, and they generally just to either update our PIMs or get a value for the accountant at a certain time or to reset, etc. But we don't do anything with the information. If you do cyclic stock takes, there's 2 things that come out of it. You're able to adjust the value, and you're also able to identify a line variance. A line variance is if you counted 10 items and 5 were wrong, you've got a 50% variance. Now that variance might only be 1 tablet up and 1 tablet down, and so therefore the dollar variance is small, but the line variance really matters because it means that we've missed something here in a procedure, or we've missed a tablet, or it's been billed incorrectly. If we can do that earlier, you pick up missed fees earlier, you can pick up breaks in systems earlier, but we also increase the integrity of our database, which is a really important thing. So my tip is short, sharp stock takes, train more people. It's not a 1-person gig, it is a whole team gig. If you manage your stock, your cyclic stock takes, you can also move towards automation with ordering, which saves time, and therefore it's that benefit. People can assist doing other tasks within the practice.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier as well, instead of trying to order every day or every second day, look at, a few a week or 2 a week instead of 4 or 5 orders a week type thing. Yeah, with that time factor that you lose.
Yeah, so I often get asked that question, what is that, golden ratio of when to order? And it is different depending on your size of practice and your location. I work with practices in Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, and Dubai. And it is different in areas, for example, Singapore and Hong Kong. Some of their products are 3 or 6 month lead time, so their process for ordering is going to be different. In Australia and New Zealand, in general, we place an order with our primary wholesaler. It's usually, same day, next day, or 3 to 5 days if you're in a regional area. So if we think about that, one primary order a week, so your lead time of 7 days or what have you, plus if it's additional for extra days, a reorder period of 7 days, sorry, lead time might be 1, 2, 3 days. And then a top-up order, if needed, means that you're only taking that person out of a role where they could generate revenue, support, customer experience. And we're also reducing the impact on the clinic. There's a much higher impact on efficiency and productivity when we receive an order in a practice rather than when we place it. Because when we place the order, one person pretty well doing the gig. When we receive an order, we've got people going everywhere, putting things away. I don't know if you remember, thinking in our workplace, etc. If you go to another department or walk in another area, we don't put our blinkers on and not talk to anyone. We start talking, which causes distraction, inefficiency. So one primary and a backup is the goal.
Nice. And then I guess, some of the biggest inventory management mistakes that you might see, what would those be?
I think the first thing I would say is not managing our PIMs. Fundamentally, the integrity of a database matters. If you were looking for some metrics for a small animal GP practice, we're generally looking for 600 to 800 active inventory lines, unless they've got a large merchandising space. Historically, when I do inventory audits, we're seeing 2,500 to 7,000 active inventory lines. If we've got a large number of active inventory lines, it means that when a person is doing the billing, they have a higher risk of billing the wrong item. It also means we have duplication, and remembering when we update our prices, the price can only update to one stock code, and therefore only either one or none get updated. So we have margin risk. So the first thing I say is the integrity of the database. Get that really tight because that saves so many other pieces. That's the first. The second I would say is not having a procurement guideline. Think back to people doing the best they can with the information. Give them the information to make smart purchasing decisions. And then actually reviewing your ideals and criticals regularly. So your top 100 items, reviewing them at least every 6 months, and your seasonal items, setting seasonal stock limits and having alerts on them. Those are probably a couple of those really top things, because what they'll do is increase your efficiency. If you're, checking your stock regularly, you'll reduce back stock, all those simple things that stop cash being tied up in inventory.
Awesome. So playing into that technology piece that you mentioned around the PIMs, if a clinic has that well set up from the beginning, or after they've done a big review and reduced some of those lines, what sort of gain and I guess efficiency will they find? And is there anything else in that technology space that you see as important?
Definitely. So I think technology is there to do the heavy lifting for us. And a lot of our team members don't know how to utilize the technology. So when I think about technology, I think about, are you using a barcode or a point of sale scanner? Anything that is being sold in the front of house should be sold by a barcode scanner. That ensures that the product is being matched to the right product on the software, reducing the risk of margin erosion or misbilling. So that's the first piece, using that. Also utilizing things for your stock take. When we use a human to write and then data input, that means the human is doing multiple actions. We're humans, we're not robots, and we make mistakes. So if we can scan, it still requires us to perhaps count, unless you're using technology to count, and there's lots of pill counting apps out there for you. So look into those, great apps that can take some of that heavy lifting, but that actually takes a couple of steps out. So utilizing your software for your stock taking would be another really big one I'd think about, and knowing how to use your PIMs. So when we think about improving, our systems, there are a lot of reports that our PIMs can do that can give us information easy. Your PIMs can give you stock turns. Your PIMs can give you negative stock. If a product is in negative, hot tip, Josh, it's either been billed incorrectly or it hasn't been put in the system correctly. It shouldn't be in negative unless there's a reason. So if you were checking that report once a week, you'll pick up misbilling, you pick up errors in your stock, and you can actually improve that profitability, improve the systems earlier.
Amazing. So I think that's really great timing, because even with Covetrus Ascend, there's going to be a new stock take app that's released that then funnels that information directly back into the PIMs and keeps it up to date, so that you're not understocking, overstocking, etc., which is nice. If practice teams are stumped on stock control, inventory management, they don't know where to start, what sort of training or where should they start, do you think?
I think you also said something I really liked there, that you said practice teams. Please share inventory across the teams. I think back to myself 30 years ago in practice, and I was the typical inventory controller. I probably even had a little hat that said inventory controller. I was very passionate about it, and the knowledge stayed with me. It's really important that we create an inventory team. We actually utilize more than one person and document things in our PIMs, in our policies, in our protocols, so that, if you won the lotto and went to Italy for 6 weeks before you came back because you love your job, we're able to run efficiently and not run out of products. So that's the first part, is actually have a team. The next is to train the team on the fundamentals. So thinking about that, Provet has some really great inventory programs that we've written. We've recently written and updated some new programs that work in alignment with them. So we go through the fundamentals of inventory, but then applying it in your software is the second piece. Great to have the knowledge, but how do I apply it? So reaching out to your PIMS providers for looking at understanding how to utilize the system, and then being able to run the reports and do something with the information. What levers can you pull to improve it? I think that's probably that first thing. Have a team, have a training plan. Don't expect it to change overnight. It's a slow burn inventory, but it's the small changes over time that make really big impact.
This episode has been jam-packed with actionable tips, which is amazing that all of the listeners can take away after this. But just to wrap up, looking ahead, what should practices and their teams be aware of or keep an eye on into the future to remain efficient in this inventory management space?
I think the most important thing is that you have to stay on top of the integrity of your database, and you have to stay current with your products and align with your suppliers. So having a really good relationship with your supply partners matters. Because if, for example, there may be something that is, there's going to be some changes to products coming, or there might be some supply chain issues, having that knowledge ahead of time and making some plans is really important. But when we think about our technology, there will be changes. If we look around what's happened around the world with, we've got challenges scripting, but also when you look at managing stock and even technology, for example, face recognition for billing and things like that, those types of things will happen. You need to stay across it, because we think about, legislation and compliance, all of those will fit in. So I think being really across the changes in technology and how you can utilize it in your practice to save some time, and having a really strong relationship with your supply partners, checking in with them regularly, and training your team so that they know that information, so they're doing the best they can with the right information.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. And look, we'll include some of those notes in the show notes for this episode, but really appreciate your time on the episode today. It's
I'm
amazing.
very passionate about inventory. Anyone could call me anytime. Even my dog's excited. Did you hear in the background?
Saw it come in on the recording as well. Awesome. Thanks, Tanya. Have a good one.
Thanks, Josh.